Loans made for profit were very common, and they bore excessive interest that doubled or increased all the more when the settlement was delayed, until the debtors could no longer pay and the creditors would take everything their debtors had, even themselves together with their children, if they had any, to become of slaves. This is grievously true, and so true that it survives to this day. In many provinces and in many towns, everything Morga says takes place word for word. It is to be regretted that not only the Indios are engaged in usury, but also the mestizos, the Spaniards, and even some religious. And it has reached such a point that the government itself not only permits it, but also demands the property and even of the debtor to pay for the debts of other persons, as it happens to the cabeza de barangay. Read what Plaridel says on this in his magnificent pamphlet, La Soberania Manacal.
Morga stated that for the native men, they wore clothing that can be either blue or black. For the headman's clothing color, it was color red. Rizal stated that rich colored clothes with gold stripes were worn by chiefs. Natives who took pride in being brave let fall the ends of their clothes. It would also show the colors of their principality and the mottos and exploits of their achievement. Potong was worn to the natives who killed at least one person, and added with stripes was worn for the ones who killed at least 7.
In the event that any native should have had intercourse with any of his female slaves and come to have children as a result, therefore the child as well as the female slave become free thereby. A custom more merciful than the conduct of Abraham toward Hagar and Ishmael, in spite of the fact that he was just man chosen by the Lord.
Morga stated that upon slaves committing any slight offense or fault, these henchmen were either punished, made slaves, or killed. On the other hand, Rizal annotated that these slaves were not always in such dismal condition. Argensola says that they ate with their master at the same table, and afterwards they married members of the family.
Morga, among the natives, the ordinary price for a sagugulid slave is usually not over 10 taels of good gold worth 8 pesos. Rizal, however, compelled the encomenderos not to pay more than 2 taels of gold for slaves bought by force. Some became slaves on account of unpaid loans and usurious rates of interest.
The privilege of principalship were also enjoyed by the women of noble birth at part with the men. In this regard, the Filipinos act very much in conformity with natural laws, being ahead of the European, whose women lose their nobility when they marry plebeian and among whose descent in the male line, which offered the least guarantee. Consideration that the woman in this island and enjoyed since antiquity.
Those who help in building the master's house and to serve frequently are helpers in the same when there are guests, and to serve there whenever the master required them to do so without any compensation are known as namamahays. Slaves whose children are descendants are also slaves to serve in the same capacity. Namamahay from bahay or house in English, one who lives in his own house. This kind of slaves, if they can be called slaves, still exist and are called kasama, for being now with partners or laborers of a capitalist or farmer.
Morga stated that these slaves were of various kinds. Some were for all purpose and servitude, such as we have, and these were called sagigilires. Rizal stated, "We can't find the etymology of this word, which in its Tagalog form ought to be sagigilid. The root gilis means edge. The unaccented reduplication can also mean plurality, and in this case, the name in singular word will be sagilid, that is on the border."
Men and women are covetous and money-loving, so that there is a price they easily yield. According to Rizal, this weakness of Indian women that historians relate, it seems can be attributed not only to the sincerity with which they obey nature and their own instincts, but also to a religious belief that Father Quirino tells us about. A doctrine planted the devil in some women of these islands, and I believe in all who cannot be saved, be they married or marriageable, is the woman who does not have some lover, because they say he will help them in the next life by leading them by hand in crossing a very dangerous river that has no bridge but a very narrow piece of timber which must be crossed in order to reach what they call Kalwalhatian.
Marriages among the natives are generally between the principals and their fellow principals or nobles. Likewise, Timawas marry among those of their own stallions, and the regular slaves also marry their fellow slaves. But sometimes, they intermarry among different castes. This proves that the relations of these classes among themselves are not only far from resembling those of the masters of the West and their servants, but that they were even more cordial than those of the patrician and the Roman people, among whom at the beginning was forbidden to establish family ties through weddings.